Hey guys, Chris Clothier here with another Friday episode of The Grind Podcast. Whatever day it is you're listening to it, thank you so much for joining me. Morning, noon, night, whatever. Today I'm recording on a beautiful Friday. It's another beautiful Friday here in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm talking about a topic today that we actually get asked about, but it's so funny because the questions that we get asked on it's kind of like, I don't want to say that it shouldn't be embarrassing, but I think some people are just unwilling to ask this question more in public because they feel like it makes them, they'll be taken less seriously, or maybe people won't respect them, or they'll even be ignored because the question is about money. And it comes primarily from newer investors that are trying to figure out, hey, how do I get started in real estate? Especially when maybe my finances are limited, or I'm trying to focus on paying off student debt. I'm getting ready to get married, so we're putting everything towards that. Maybe I just bought my first house, or I'm saving for my first house, but I also want to invest in real estate too. I mean, there's a million different ways that this question gets asked or kind of phrased, if you know what I mean, because everyone has a unique situation. And so one of the things we thought that we would talk about today is, number one, kind of the mindset to have. I know that we probably have a lot of listeners on The Grind that find themselves in this scenario. You know, they're looking for guidance. They're looking for expertise, somebody that can, you know, that's maybe been there before, that can give them some ideas and maybe some tips, tricks, whatever you want to call it, on, hey, how do we get started with limited resources, and how do we protect ourselves? Because there's lots of different ways to get going out there. And, you know, I'm a big proponent. I often say that you cannot be in real estate successfully without money. Now, I know that's counter to some of the statements put out there by some very famous Instagram investors. You know, some people who have built their brands out there, and I don't have a brand. I don't care to have a brand. You know, I'm just a regular old dude that's going to sit here and talk to you about what I think is real. And for everybody that succeeds in real estate with no money, because they are taking massive risks with other people's money, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of investors that fail when they just don't have the resources and the money to get it done. So, you know, we thought this is a really good topic to discuss so that investors know there are some steps you can take. There's some ways you can go about investing in real estate with no money, very little money, other people's money, whatever you want to call it. And you can be, especially as a passive investor, you know, actually buying whole pieces of real estate. There's ways you can go about getting started with limited resources. So that's what we thought we'd talk about today. Now I guess the very first thing I have to do is I have to make sure I define this properly for you. Limited resources is different than no money. And no money is different than limited resources. What do we really mean here? Look, the prospects of you owning high quality single family homes in median price points and above, and you have literally no disposable income, no extra money, no money, you know, to use to get started. I'm just going to tell you straight up, this is not the avenue you want to go down. Not only do I think you'll struggle at even being able to get started, but there's still risks, you know, to buying long-term buy and hold real estate. And maybe you want to just get in, you want to do the quick fix and flip. And so that's your answer because it's not long-term buy and hold. Well, look, there's risk there too. A lot of them. In my opinion, you cannot invest in real estate successfully if you don't have some resources of your own. And we'll call that some disposable income, maybe some savings you put aside for investments in particular, the ability to be able to have access to capital. I mean, you just have to have it. I can't say it any differently. There is no way to invest in real estate without money. How do you get it? I figured that would be the best route to take because, and I'm going to talk about this with different ways because some of our listeners out there, I mean, they've already told us, I have money, but you know, in order to buy a good high quality single family home above median value, which is the sweet spot today of prices that are going up. It's going to take every single dollar I have. And I caution investors that do not invest in one piece of real estate without a plan to build out more, especially not far from home. That's just an expensive headache. In that scenario, invest close to home. Perhaps you buy a duplex and you house hack. You buy a duplex and one side is a rental, the other side is yours. The rental actually pays for the whole property, so you live rent-free. You now have erased an expense from your bills, and you have the ability now to make money. If you can slowly maybe raise the rent even just a little bit, if you can get better terms down the line, refinance and lower the cost of ownership of that property, that's ways that you're building money in a piece of real estate. That's a way to get started with limited funds. If you only have the money to buy one, I would look at investing close to home. Don't invest far from home. Invest close to home. Invest in something that, if you have a rental, let's go back here a second. If you have a good housing situation, whether you own or not, and you can buy a duplex that you're not going to live in, but you're going to be able to rent both sides of it. But you could only buy one property. I would suggest trying to take that route. It just makes more sense. The more doors you're able to build out, the better. If you're committed to single family homes, as I am, and there's reasons behind that. There's reasons I prefer single family homes over duplexes. Mostly due to resident transiency. The residents that live in duplexes or multifamily, complexes tend to be more transient. They tend to move more often. And, I'm not going to use the word stable because they may be perfectly stable, but their housing's not stable. They bounce a little bit. Single family homes, especially those at median value and above, they just tend to be more stable. People look to put roots and stay in a property. It's easier to keep a property occupied for 6, 7, 8 years, like what we do on average. So, that's why I go that route. But if you can only buy one house, I would, and you definitely want to get going. I would look to buy closer to home. Maybe even look at multifamily, maybe even look at something that I can house hack my way into. That's a great way to get started. If you're committed to, I have to invest far from home. I cannot invest close to me, whether it's because you don't want the, and these are all valid. You don't want the responsibility, okay? You don't even, your personality. Your personality is one that you'll try and take over from a management company. You'll try and tell them how to do their job. Invest far from home. If your personality is one that I'm going to drive by the house every single day, I'm going to worry about it constantly, I'm going to think about all the issues with it, I'm never going to sleep knowing that somebody else isn't taking care of it the way I would, don't invest close to home. Don't invest anywhere that you can drive past the house. Invest far from home. And invest with a great management company in that case that's going to keep you updated. But just the same, there are ways to go about it if you have limited funds. If you only have the money to buy one house, definitely don't lower your standards. But review your, where you're at. If I can buy one house, then I get started. How am I going to buy my second one? How am I going to build out my portfolio? If you look at your current situation and okay, I'm able to save so many dollars every single month, and I know that I get a bonus every single year. Maybe I've got a spouse that is in kind of the same boat. We can take all of their income and put it all off to the side for savings for that next property, and I can see my way through buying one property every 2 years. And I want to do that over the next 10. So I've got 5 properties, and anywhere along the way I can speed that process up, I will. But today I know I can buy one every 2 years. Move forward. Do it. All right. Limited resources. Move forward. If you know that I'm going to use a majority of my money here and I'm not going to have this big little nest egg off to the side to take care of any issues that come up, then you have to buy the absolute best property you can for that money. You have to buy the best service you can. You don't have room to make mistakes where there could be costs in that first year while you're rebuilding your next nest egg for that next property. So, there are ways to move forward and to have a plan in place to build up your resources as you go. All right. So if you find yourself in that scenario, whether it's investing close to home in a multifamily, it's investing far from home, and then having a plan to build your resources as you go and continue to invest. And you've got little markers on the calendar that at this point I'm going to buy my next one, and this point my next one, and this point my next one. Use them. Do it. I would tell you that's a good way to move forward. Still, some of our listeners, they find themselves in a different boat. They find themselves in a boat of I'm years away from being able to buy my first property because limited resources, limited current ability to build out those resources. It's just going to take a long time. But you're committed. So if you find yourself in that scenario, there's a few ways you can go. One is a partnership. If you have somebody or know somebody, they could be a family member, they could be a friend, a neighbor, a colleague, whatever, and you are able to agree that you both want to invest in real estate. You're able to agree in a division of who's doing what here. And it could be that one person, it could be you, that does the due diligence, that finds the right property, that knows that they've got the right scenario here, can put some money in, but really you're relying on a partner to bring a bulk of the money. You might give up some of the return. They might get all of the monthly return on the property, and you only get to participate in the up on the back end. Maybe you're going to refinance. You agree. You will refinance in the next 3 to 5 years, and whatever you're able to pull out, y'all split 50-50. But they get the bulk of the income now or whatever percentage of the money that you each put in. That's a good way to set up a partnership. It's got to be fair to both, but that's a good way to get started if you don't have a lot of money. You just treat the person that has the money fairly, bring them in on a partnership, and then figure out some way for you to be able to benefit down the line. There again, I suggest that the plan is to build multiple properties. You don't want to just buy one. I just can't say that enough. One house is not a portfolio. One house is just an investment that you've made, and one house is not gonna change your trajectory. It's not going to change your outcomes. So you need to look to build a portfolio. Another way. And this one, you start introducing some danger, is through hard money, short-term lending. If you have the ability to borrow money short-term to be able to enter into buying a house, but you have to refinance it to pay that loan back. You have to refinance it and have the ability to pull that money out and repay that loan back. You have to be spot on with your numbers, and you have to know, there's a few things you have to know. You have to know that you qualify to buy houses, number one, that you qualify with this funding source that you have, and that you qualify to refinance. And when you do refinance, there's a high probability. You've taken almost every risk out of it that the house will be worth more, or you're buying it at such a price that there's equity built in, so you can refinance that out to pay off your hard money loan, your short-term loan. Some people call this the BRRRR method. So you're buying, you're renovating, you're refinancing, and you're repeating. In some cases, you're just buying, refinancing, and repeating, especially if you're buying far from home through turnkey. I think that's a tough road to go. There's usually not a lot of room left in these houses where someone else is doing all the work on the front end. There's just not. So that's risky, but it's an option. And if you find yourself in a situation where you just don't have the funding, but you are committed to getting started, it's an option that's worth exploring. It's an option that you need to look at. If you can borrow the money to get going, but you have the plan and the ability to pay that back and still own the asset and still have room for growth. That's what you're looking for. And I know a lot of investors who have successfully borrowed a majority of everything they've used, so they don't have hardly any of their own money in. And they look up, I know this sounds like forever, but just trust me, they look up after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they have a portfolio, and they have the ability to not use that hard money anymore. Success leads to more success. And so if you're looking to, become an investor and build a portfolio, this is a successful way to get started. And it's a successful way to learn about real estate. And pretty soon you look up and maybe there's other avenues in real estate that you want to explore, and you're willing to because of the relationships you've made, the lessons you've learned, the ability to buy and get started with a portfolio. It all leads to confidence, and that confidence leads to more success. So, there's two really good ways to get started if you don't have any resources. And I'm going to give you another one here. So, or if you're limited on your resources without a lot of avenues to build them, there's nothing wrong with waiting to build your long-term portfolio, but getting involved in real estate today. You could flip the script. Maybe you have enough money to maybe get started buying, some long-term real estate, but maybe you have to buy at a price point or in an area that you're not comfortable, that it just doesn't provide you good enough return on your investment. So you become the lender rather than the borrower. And maybe you take your money and you seek to partner with other investors that need money partners. Maybe they are already successful and you need to give them your money for a big return. Now that's a way for you to take your money and get a return on it and start building your resources to buy your long-term property later. A huge piece of advice I give investors, and I give this every single day: be patient. There is no rush. Even with everything happening today in the real estate market, we see the trend. Prices are going up. We see that taxes are going up. We see that the cost of ownership is going up. We see that the cost of money, the lending, the borrowing rates, they're all going up. But so are rents, so are values. And does it mean that you have to invest today before everything goes up and you lose all the great deals? No, not at all. I'm a true believer that at any period of time, you can find a good deal in any location, any city. A lot of it depends on how you define it, how successful you are, how creative you are, how good are you at getting out there and digging for the deals. And so, I kind of put it out there to you that perhaps the way you get started in real estate isn't, how you get to your goal. So if your long-term goal is to own, buy and hold real estate and to build a long-term portfolio, but you don't have enough resources today or the ability to keep building them up, perhaps you just flip the script and you become the lender rather than the borrower. And that's a third way to go about actually, with those limited resources, building them up. And you're delaying gratification a little bit. But just because you didn't buy today doesn't mean that tomorrow won't be a great deal. It doesn't mean tomorrow won't be a good time to invest. It absolutely will be. Okay. So don't be in such a hurry. Be patient. The time is going to be right when you decide to move forward. The last kind of scenario I wanted to make sure I went through here is the true investor that just really has, they not only do they not have funding, they also don't have the means, but they really have the desire to get going. This is a scenario where, look, you have to figure out a way to bring value to someone else that has what you don't have. Somebody that has money, but they don't have the time. Somebody that has money, but they don't have the ability to go find and do the research. And, as an investor, you have to figure out what do I have? What can I bring to the table? Because if I don't have money, I don't have the resources today, it's going to be super hard to have somebody just give you those resources, say, here, just go do it. It's not going to come from a reputable lender. It's just not going to happen. But what do you have? What do you bring to the equation? Can you work with, or even in some cases work for, an investor that is successful? Can you take part of your compensation in ownership of a property, or lump sum it? Like, I'm going to work for you for this amount for a year, but my bonus at the end is going to be a lump sum that I can use to buy a property. Something. I love the enthusiasm that so many of our listeners, they express because they really want to get started. All I can tell you is that, I was in my, I was somewhere in my mid 30s, I guess. Let's see, I was in my mid 30s before I was actually building assets. Before that, I was doing lots of different investing. I'd already started my own company. I had won and lost some stuff. I'd already bought some property, but I wouldn't call them real investments, not yet. So if you find yourself in your 20s and you're like, man, I got to get started today to get through it. No, you don't. You don't. I don't have a lot of really great advice for those that just really don't have assets, don't have access to assets, don't have the ability to build up their assets in a short period of time. The best advice I can give you is that you need to model those that you want to emulate. So find investors that are doing what you want to do. See if there's a scenario where you can work with or work for, work nearby. What can you bring to the table to help them? See if there's a way to forget that. Just take a job at their company. Let me work for you until I figure this thing out. Meanwhile, if you're truly committed to doing real estate, I'll never forget, a friend of mine recently was telling me about a guy who just got radical in his thinking all the way around. He was like, look, I want to invest in real estate, so I don't own a car. I can get to and from my job on a bike. I got a nice bike, I've got a nice bike that I can get everywhere I need to go. I don't live in, above my means. I make my own lunch every day. It's pretty boring what I eat, but I don't spend a lot of money on excesses in food. He talked about at one point, he did have a girlfriend. He doesn't today, but he said that she wasn't on the same page as he was. She wasn't radical. She wanted to enjoy more of today, there was nothing wrong with that, but he was like, they weren't compatible. So, he's looking for, a partner in life or whatever that's going to more match his radicalness, of somebody that's willing to sacrifice, some basic things today to have greater freedoms tomorrow. And so 1-bedroom apartment, lack of entertainment, spending, instead puts a lot more money towards his future goals. Does not have a car payment. Instead, he has a bike. He's willing to make all these sacrifices right now while he's saving. That's a big, big deal. So if you find yourself possibly even in that scenario, that's something you want to do. I think that it's something worth looking for. If you're truly committed to investing in real estate, what sacrifices are you willing to make to get there? How radical are you willing to go to say that I don't have the resources today, but I will have them 12 months from now because I'm going radical. I'm gonna live in a 3-bedroom apartment with roommates instead of a 2-bedroom apartment by myself or whatever it ends up being. I'm gonna do the things I have to do in order to get the goals that I want. And if you find yourself truly, truly lacking options today to get started in real estate, then my suggestion is ask yourself, how radical am I willing to go? And if I do these steps, am I willing to save? Am I really willing to be committed to, I am going to invest in real estate in the nearest possible term? So, guys, that's, again, that's the advice I have. Some of that comes from experience, some of that comes from my own experience. Some of it comes from talking to other investors like yourselves out there. But either way, this is what I know. If you want to find success in real estate, you can. There's always a way. You just have to be willing sometimes to sacrifice, sometimes to be creative, sometimes to take a different role than what you thought you had in mind for yourself until you get ready and prepared to take the role you want. There's a million different ways to get going and get started. And I just touched on a few, but I hope it answers some of the questions we've been getting and some of the comments we've been getting, because look, my job, what I really view my job as a podcaster, is to get out there and to share information and to help you move forward, to tell the truth, to tell, that like I got to keep it as real as possible about what the prospects of success are. And I think that everybody can be successful at whatever they want to achieve. You just got to know the right route to take to get there. Until we get a chance to meet again, guys, I will always want to say thank you. I appreciate all the interactions you give us online, the emails you send us, the comments, all the interaction through the social media. And look, whatever day you're listening to this, until we get a chance to get back together, make sure you commit to the grind. There ain't nothing wrong with the grind at all. There's nothing wrong with working hard and being willing to push yourself to be the best version of yourself you can be. All right? So until we get a chance to meet again, until I record another podcast and we're talking, guys, commit to the grind. We'll see you soon. Thanks.